And welcome to my video on the structures of the sheep brain. My name is Sean Glass, and this is for Biology 235. And we are going to be talking about the sheep brain in specific. Now, the sheep brain that I have here is already dissected. It's actually dissected, transected in half, but I'm going to be holding it together for part of the presentation to show you the certain structures that are part of the gross anatomy, and then we'll go ahead and delve deeper into some of the internal anatomy. And so what we're going to start out with is identifying the various lobes of the sheep brain. So let's go ahead and let's start out with the frontal lobe. So when we're looking at the sheep's brain, the frontal lobe is the area that you see right there in the front, and if I tilt it a little bit, you can actually see the sulcus going across that's actually separating the frontal lobe from what we see at the top with the parietal lobe. This is at the superior area. On the parietal lobe, you have a separation on the sides, laterally, and then laterally here, and this is what is separating the parietal lobe here from the temporal lobe, which is over here on the side. Notice the temporal lobe here. Now, as we come to the rear, or the posterior portion of the brain, we have what's known as the occipital lobe. The occipital lobe is this area here and here, and essentially that is demarcated as well by another point, another sulcus, if you will. And so that's how you see the separation between the four lobes. And so in order to describe a little bit more about what the difference is between a sulcus and a gyrus, when you look at the brain, what you have certain areas of indentation, and those you'll see on the video. They're kind of the shadowy areas, right? See, along the area. Let me see if I can get closer. Right there and along there. So those sulci are actually the indents into the brain, and then next to them in each point is the gyri, or a gyrus singular. The gyrus is the part that kind of bulges out, as it were. What these two structures do is together they actually increase the surface area of the brain. Now we're talking about the brain. There's obviously I've cut into it, but there's something that's known as the longitudinal fissure. And you can see that right there in the center of the brain. And the longitudinal fissure is what separates the left and the right hemispheres. Now, the lateral sulcus is another portion that's a separation in the brain. The lateral sulcus, you can see, separates the cerebrum from this structure back here, the cerebellum, which attaches on the underneath and is attached to the medulla oblongata and the pons and so forth, and attaches to the spinal cord. Now, as far as that structure goes, again, this part back here that you see right there, see it, that is the cerebellum. The cerebellum is this structure. Here, I'll show you on the cut view. the cerebellum is actually this structure right here. And the cerebellum has a couple of structures beneath it. So inferior to the cerebellum, what you have is you have this structure here known as the pons. And connected to the pons, what you have is the medulla oblongata. The medulla oblongata, this area, also known as the brainstem, actually transfers to the spinal cord, which is at the very end here. And the spinal cord, of course, goes into the rest of the body and innervates the various nerves, motor nerves and otherwise, and then you have the cranial nerves that sit inside the brain. So let's go ahead and let's point out some more structures. So let's look at the this view of the brain here showing the olfactory bulb. So when you're looking at the brain, on the underside, you have these structures. They're located right here at the very front of the brain. They're right there on the frontal lobe. And these right here, you turn it over. These right here are the olfactory bulbs. The olfactory bulbs descend into an olfactory tract. Let me see if I can get my pen to kind of trace that a little bit for you. So the olfactory tract, which goes from the olfactory bulb down, and there you are. You have the olfactory bulb and the olfactory tract. In addition to that, structure that's very easily recognizable here is the optic nerve. Let me get it in focus here. The optic nerve is portion right. When you look at the optic nerve, you can see the optic chiasm, which is this kind of cross-like structure there. Let's see, right there. Don't move it too much. Okay, so the portions that are coming up towards the anterior portion of the brain, that's the optic nerves, and then the optic chiasm is the area that's right in. Get my pen again. Right here in the there, right there. And so that's where the optic nerves are. The cerebral peduncle is located right, well, if we were to say have the brain at its regular lie, it would be just posterior to the area of the optic nerve and optic chiasm. As you can see right there, pointing it out, that's the structure that we're looking at right there. Okay? And so in addition to that, we have an area, let's get this in focus. Okay. We have an area right here. Now my finger's over it, but let me see if I can point it out to you with this pin. So that area that's being pointed to right there, that's what's known as the mammillary body. Extending off from that is what's known as the pituitary gland. Now in this brain, during dissection or possibly during transfer, the pituitary gland was damaged or was avulsed from the actual brain itself. But you would be able to see it here on the edge of the mammillary body, extending downward and out from it. Okay? All right. And so we've gone through a number of the areas on the ventral surface. Now we're going to talk a little bit about several of the cranial nerves that exist here on the brain. So first off, the oculomotor nerve. Now the oculomotor nerve is located bit a bit posterior to the optic chiasm. And it's, if you can see, it's this structure right here. Are you able to make that out? There. Okay. So that is what's known as the oculomotor nerve. Then you also have what's known as the trigeminal nerve, and the trigeminal nerve is near that area. It's actually more right over towards, whoop, the pen. Apologies. The trigeminal nerve is actually located closer over to this area where I'm indicating right there. Okay? Alright. Now, moving on from there, you have the trochlear nerve, and the trochlear nerve is located further down, kind of closer to the cerebellum. I'm going to kind of coax it a little bit and point it out to you. There we go. So the trochlear nerve, if you were to look at it, it's going to be right about there. It's a very thin kind of translucent structure at this point in time, but it's there, definitely there. And then finally, as far as the nerves we're going to be describing goes, we have what's known as the abducens nerve. And the abducens nerve, if you can see, is located, it's actually just superior, it's actually really close to being on the pons itself, it looks like here. And those are four of the cranial nerves. And again, to reiterate, actually, this structure right here, these two branches up at the top of the optic chiasm, those are, here, let me get a pin through it. Those right there, see, coming up, those are the ocular nerves. Okay, I'm going to pause the video for now, and we're going to capture some more in a moment.